Hi everybody, my name's Anne. Thanks for joining me on Art on the Creek. I'm so happy that you're here because I have for you yesterday's coffee. I wouldn't do that to you, I promise. I really have an aversion to day old coffee. In fact, I don't think it should be allowed. So that's my opinion on coffee. I love coffee. But day old coffee, nope, no. When you're done, you're done. Just make a new pot. It's not that expensive. Just go ahead. But for art, day old coffee is really kind of fun because it gets a little more concentrated. My particular example is not all that concentrated because it was an afternoon cup of decaf. I know, I have to have decaf in the afternoon. And it was made from a Keurig, so it wasn't quite that strong. But I think if we use some espresso next time, I don't know, this is one of those live and learn things, but let's go experiment with some splash art and let's have fun painting Mickey Mouse. Are you ready? Here we go. Some days things just work out, and I actually found this picture of Mickey Mouse on Pixabay, which is a royalty-free site with an asterisk. There's some exceptions on there, and this one might fall into that exception range. So I mean, it's fan art. For educational purposes, we're just fine here. I'm not planning on selling this. This is a huge experiment. And I wanted to use the GRABIE watercolor pad. I love the size. It's 8.3 inches by 5.8 inches, cold press, 100% cotton. And drawing Mickey was really easy, but here's the first suggestion that I will have for you to, if you want to do this yourself. Number one, don't forget Mickey's tail. I am so sorry, Mickey. Maybe I could add that in. I probably can. Yeah, I think I'll add that in. And don't use a 4H pencil when you're doing this splash art because it's just too hard to erase. You're going to want to use something much softer, at least a 2B. So we're just going to get Mickey sketched in here, and I'm trying to experiment with a new camera angle. So let me know in the comments, what do you guys think of this angle? It's I wish you could see how I had to set it up. It's a little tiny tripod that has adjustable legs that, you kind of just shape them into however you want. And I've got it kind of rigged around the heaviest thing I could find, which was my mug full of paintbrushes. So yeah, a little bit weird. But anyway, let me know what you think of this angle. It won't be this way for the whole thing because right now it kind of looks like the original Batman and we're in the villain's lair. So we're going to take that coffee and pour it into something that's easier to pour from, because if you've ever poured anything out of a coffee mug that has any curve at all, you will know that it just kind of hangs to the side of the cup on the outside. So you want to have something that you can pour from easily. That's number one. And then number two, rather than splash all over my table, I decided to use a straw. And you see that plastic under there? I folded up a trash can liner and kind of stuck it in there so that I wouldn't get coffee absorbed in all the consecutive pages. Now, the next page does have some coffee on it. So that's another big tip, is that you are going to get coffee all over. You can see the cover kind of got some coffee on it. But I really like the way blowing with the straw can manipulate that splash. And it just gives you a good amount of energy and action. And as you can see, this is not very dark brown. If you were to use some espresso and let that sit overnight, I think that would really be nice because then you'd really get to have your splash. However, the way that I did this, I painted where the splash is. So keep that in mind. If you're going to use watercolors, then whatever you've got behind there, that's going to change the tone of your watercolor ever so slightly. I have seen this done all over with several things. I've seen it done with colored pencil and alcohol marker, and you know what? I don't think I've ever seen it done with watercolor. I'm 100% positive I'm not the first one to do this, so don't get me wrong. I've seen it done with Posca paint pens, colored pencil. Did I mention colored pencil already? And combinations of those things. But you know what? I just don't think I've ever seen it done with watercolor. The set that I'm using today is the GRABIE set. I can put a link to all of this for you in the description. And full disclosure, I will get a slight commission if you decide to purchase through that link. I do have a collaboration going with GRABIE watercolors for this set. But I like it. It's a beginner set, a student grade set, but the colors, the pigments are really nice and vibrant. Now, I did have some issues with the red, but that is on me because I wasn't quite sure how I wanted to do this. You know, I was thinking, well, maybe I'll make Mickey gold. Maybe I'll make him like an Oscar and kind of start with this burnt sienna and go in and make him like a bronze statue. So I started that way, and I didn't like the way it turned out. So I ended up changing it around, but I'm using the brush that came with this set. It's really nice. I did turn the sound off when I assembled the brush though, because the squeak on it is really shrill and high, and I didn't want to assault your ears with that. But that is a problem that is easily solved. I just need to get some fountain pen lubricant, like that silicone stuff. I don't really know what it is. It comes in a little container, and it's kind of like a texture of Vaseline. And I can just rub that around the knurls on the screw-on portion of this, and then it will screw on nice and silently. I love this brush though. It's got a metal handle, and it's really got a beautiful point. So this brush is really nice. This whole little travel set comes with this set of paints that you see here, and I've swatched it over there on the left, so you can see you've got the 12 colors there. It's a Payne's gray, not a black, which I am thrilled with, because most sets like this give you lamp black and the Chinese white. This one is Payne's gray, so I'm super excited about that. It has an ultramarine. The burnt sienna, as you can see as I'm using it, is most likely a PR 101 if it is that, because, well, I'm sure it is made from some pigment, although there's no light fast ratings to speak of on this set. But at any rate, look how orange it is. So that's why I was kind of thinking that this would be really fun to use to make him kind of a bronze statue, but I end up changing my mind, and we'll speed ahead to that here in just a moment. I want to tell you a little bit more about this set. It also comes with a graphite pencil, which I probably should have used to sketch Mickey, because it's very soft graphite, and it has a little cap on it. It's kind of a woodless graphite that fits right in there in the middle of the paint pans. And then it also comes with a tiny little pad of paper, and it's just the cutest thing in the world. It's cold pressed paper, and it's about the size of a note card. I mean, like, it measures like 3.5 by 5 inches. Here, I'll measure it real quick so I can tell you. It is 3 inches by 5.25, and they're just nice little things. They fit all in that little drawstring bag. I don't know if you caught that when I was opening the box here, but I really like this set, and that burnt sienna, as orange as it is, if you mix it with the purple, you can have a great skin tone. Now, for Mickey's skin, I ended up mixing the 3 primaries, the red, yellow, and blue. And I did have some issues with the red streaking, but like I said, that's on me because I changed my mind midway through. So let me go ahead to the part where I changed my mind, and then I can kind of show you what we're doing here. So as I'm painting this, you guys, I'm kind of thinking that this is really kind of a puzzle. Now, if your eyes are older like mine, or if you have trouble seeing light contrasts a little bit, you might want to make sure you have really good lighting when you're doing this, because what happened was I did get off of my game here on one little part, and we'll see that toward the end. I put a line where there wasn't a line at all. It's a bit of a puzzle trying to remember what your plan was. So my plan was to paint wherever the coffee had landed. And I really like the final result. I did achieve that, but as I was painting it, it was a real puzzle, because there was a lot of times when I found myself thinking, okay, do I follow my pencil line or do I follow the coffee line? So just kind of remember, maybe it's a good idea to erase your lines, your pencil lines, before you go in and paint on the coffee. For me, I thought that would make it more challenging though, so who knows? Just little notes, keep a little notepad going, and you'll hopefully gain some tips here. So this is back when I was still thinking I was going to make Mickey all warm tones, and as I'm painting this warm red for his shorts, I really didn't like what was happening on his chest. I think I just got too much water on that burnt sienna, and it's a hard edge all the way around it. And I have a nice background there on his ears, both ears actually. So I wasn't thrilled with what was happening here, and that I think is my fault, of course, because I don't have my water levels the same in all my washes. So let me fast forward it again, and I'll show you what I ended up deciding to do. And you know, it ended up being overworked, but this particular one was an experiment, and it was the first time doing it. So I really did learn a lot on this. So if you ever do splash art, I want to share these tips with you so that you won't have the same hurdles that I did. I'm going to interrupt myself here for just a second because my studio is down in our finished basement. I have everything set up down here, and I'm right next to a window. It's got great light, wonderful air coming through because we're having such a wonderful fall here in Colorado. The weather is just really perfect. I have never heard so many heavy-duty lawn tools in my life. This has really just been a weird fall for that, so I had to close my window. I'm kind of bummed about that. So here I am trying to make Mickey darker because I thought, well, maybe I'll give him a patina look. So I mixed that same burnt sienna with some ultramarine to kind of give it that oiled bronze or rubbed bronze look. And as I'm painting this, I'm not digging it. So I decided, you know what, I'm just going to dry him off completely, which I've done here. And I also don't like the warm red on his shorts. So I mean, like this, there were a lot of experiments happening here. And then plus trying to figure out my plan of where I was painting and where I wasn't painting. By this point, I was really thinking, okay, Anne, you've got to stop. You're doing a new thing that you've never done before, which is the splash art. Plus you're trying to paint bronze and now oil rubbed bronze. It's just too many loose ends, too many possible ways to fail. So I wanted to give myself at least a sort of kind of win on this. So I decided I was just going to go in with Payne's Gray, and we'll just paint Mickey this way. And this is where he ends up getting overworked. So I would say my other tip for you is to have more of a clear plan when you're doing this. Maybe actually what it is to do a practice run first, because I learned so much on this, and I think if you do a practice run, you too will learn really some interesting things, because your splash, number one, is totally random. And especially if you use the straw to blow the splash in different directions, that's one thing that I really did pilot well, I thought, for what I was trying to achieve, was to blow that in all different directions so that it really just looks like bam, here's Mickey. And this is the other thing too, consider your subject matter. A splash is very energetic. So what is it that you want to show through that splash? What would be really cool if you wanted to do some more Disney is Little Mermaid, Ariel, when she's coming out of the water and that big splash scene there. Or an ocean wave, or anything that has to do with water splashing. I'm thinking a sea turtle, a dolphin, anything like that. And of course, you don't have to keep it literal with splashes, because here Mickey is not coming out of a splash ever, really. But remember when Disney was new in my life, in the animation from the 30s, 40s, 50s, all of that era of Disney. That was the Disney that I had access to as a child, because they were trying to figure out who they were in the 60s and 70s, and the animation was just kind of strange. Go watch Aristocats one time. You'll see what I mean. They kept all the sketch lines in. It's very, very odd. But the earlier pictures, the earlier parts, when they had those shorts with Goofy and that paintbrush would be animated and just go back and forth across the screen, and in that drip of paint, you would see a scene. That's exactly what this is, and that's what I wanted to achieve. So if you haven't seen some of those, maybe Google Disney animated paintbrush and you will see what I'm talking about. I'm pretty sure you'll be able to find something on YouTube that way, or somewhere in the world of internet. Because when you are looking to do something in the style of, even if it's just an idea you have and it ends up being a launch pad for you to create something else entirely, if you're doing something in the style of, it's a really good idea to have access to what it is you're trying to paint in the style of. For instance, Mickey splashes. I'm very familiar with Disney. I grew up with him. I talk about him a lot on this channel. But those animated paintbrush style art frames, the cells that were on film, are very, very familiar to me. And that's exactly what I kept thinking of when I was doing this. So pull something out of your intimate memory, or have access to something that you can look up so that you can refresh your memory, and then go from there. So now I'm going to give this a dry, and then we'll go and we'll make some more changes, because, oh yes, I can't keep with my plan on this one. So once I had decided to abandon the warm tones and the bronze, his shorts just really looked way out of place to me. So I'm going back in with the cool red, and I'm just going to go over them. And it just turned out really kind of streaky. So ultimately, in the end, I did go over with an alcohol marker, and it kind of cleaned it up just a little bit better. So just know that you've got a lot of mediums at your media at your. If you have mediums, you have psychics around you, which you might. But media, art media, you have a lot of that at your disposal. So don't hesitate to use something on top of something else. Just remember, fat over lean, which means you're going to start with the water-soluble things. And then if you're going to move to, like, let's say a pastel, you want to do that second. Because, of course, if you put the pastel down first, the watercolor won't stick to it. So just think of that. If your medium's a little bit heavier, then use that toward the end. And the alcohol marker is kind of a toss-up. It can be either light or fat, lean or fat in this case. But I chose it to be my topper because I was thinking of it after I outlined my Mickey. So at any rate, let's keep going, because if I have anything, I have perseverance, and we are not done yet. So we're going to speed this up a little bit more and see what's next. I'm just continuing on with this cooler red over the warm red on his shorts. And you know what? Going around those buttons there, that was kind of weird, because I had the space on the right is a miss from the coffee. So then I had that, plus I had the button, and the button wasn't completely round. It was really a challenge to tell my brain not to paint that round part on the button. So now I'm going to clean off this little section on my palette, and then let's mix a skin tone for him, shall we? There are two good ways to mix skin tones when you have a little set like this. The first one I mentioned was the burnt sienna and the purple. If you have those two colors, play with those. Play with different ratios of those and get a good skin tone. And of course, if it's too dark, you can always just thin it out and add water. The one that I tend to gravitate toward and use most often when I'm painting any kind of skin, any complexion, is a primary mix. So this time I use the cool red because I like to choose the color that's closest to blood. So a cool red, and then I used a cool yellow. You can use a warm yellow, but this one was pretty warm. I think that warm yellow really almost lends toward orange, so I didn't want to go there. And then the ultramarine blue. Now you want to be careful of granulating pigments though, so sometimes you might want to choose a blue that's not quite as granulating, but this particular ultramarine doesn't granulate too much, so I think we're okay. And then you just start mixing equal quantities, and then you adjust from here on out. And it's kind of like cooking. It's kind of like you just have to keep experimenting and decide, okay, if I need it more pink, well, that's kind of, a no-brainer. You're going to add some more of the red. But if you need it to be really deep and dark, sometimes you would think, oh, I'll add more red, but you don't. You add more blue. So just keep that in mind. And, if it gets to where it's just off, start over, try again. It's only paint. You can mix it again. It doesn't take that much to paint anything. In fact, a set like this with the half pans, it's going to last you a very long time. Years and years and years. It would take you a very long time to finish a set of 12 half pans. In fact, has anyone watching this, leave it out in the comments, have you ever finished a palette of watercolors? Have you ever painted the entire thing? I haven't. I truly enjoy collecting watercolors, but I have never painted all. Now I've refilled a lot of pans, but every one in the set of 12, I've never emptied all of them and gone through them. In fact, that would be a very difficult challenge, to challenge yourself to completely finish a paint palette. That is something for the books. I don't think I could do it. Could you? Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on that. Now I'm going to go ahead and go in with more Payne's Gray and just do his nose here. And this time I got lucky because most of his face had coffee on it, so I was able to put most of his face in. But right now, after I got the skin tone in around his eyes and mouth, it was kind of making more sense to me, and it was less of a mental puzzle at this point. And I guess the other advice I have for you is just have faith. Just try and remember what you decided you wanted to paint and keep going. And that's why I think a darker coffee or a stronger coffee would be better, because you could see it just a little bit better. Now those of you who have great young eyes, I'm going to say young because that doesn't necessarily associate with how many candles you've got on your birthday cake, But because I started wearing reading glasses when I was only 35, because I've always done all kinds of really detailed work up close. And now I am nearing the end of my 50s, and I turned 59 this year, actually. And my eyes are tired at the end of the day. So when you've got it, use it, because like all things, nothing lasts forever. The pink that I'm using on Mickey's tongue is that same cool red mixed with just a little bit of the white that they include in here. If you end up with a paint set that has a Chinese white in it, don't discount it. You can't really use it to paint whites on your work, but you can definitely use it to mix other colors and create some pastels. So now what we want to do, I've got it really completely dry, and I was going to erase the lines, but I thought, no, I want to go ahead and outline with my liner pen here everywhere where I want the details to show. So I'm doing the eyes. I was going to paint them, but I decided, no, I'll go ahead and just draw them in with my pen. So here's where, again, I got a little confused sometimes with my lines, because I thought, okay, do I want to outline the entire splash or just where Mickey would have a line anyway? And I decided to go with the latter. I decided to only really focus this liner wherever Mickey would have had a hard line anyway. Instead of tracing the entire splash or outlining the entire splash, I thought that it would be just fine to just go in and do it this way. Because by this point I was thinking, you know, this kind of looks like if you had a magic bucket, like, I don't know, one created by Disney, and you spilled that swirling mix of Mickey all over the paper, and it just magically came out as Mickey. That's what I wanted this to look like. And I think, honestly, I finally got my brain on the right track and was able to do that. But boy, this was, I keep saying it was just a mental puzzle. So now the outlining is the next hurdle that I had to go over, but I was successful. And like always, I just persevered. So it's kind of funny because I really did have to kind of look over at the reference photo every now and then just to remember what I was outlining, and especially down there on the shoes where we have those little thin lines of paint that came out. I had to make a decision, well, do I want to line that or not? And I decided to, and I really liked the way it came out. Now it's time to erase. So here's where it gets complicated. Actually, complicated isn't quite the right word. Regretful, maybe that's better. I decided to use a really soft eraser, and I'm glad that I did. This is the Pentel High Polymer Soft Eraser. Because I really didn't want to damage the paper at all, and I've never really done a lot of erasing on this paper. But because I used that 4 pencil, the number 4H, the lines didn't really want to erase. So, you know, next time, right? Next time use a softer pencil. And here's where I made the mistake. I thought that this was a line that was connecting his shorts down there. Oh, and it's not. That was just something else entirely, and there's me realizing I made the mistake. So I'm going to get out my bleed-proof white and fix this error. So let me take care of that, and then we'll be right back. Because the mistake I made was with the most intense ink that I could have put on this pigment liner. I did have to go over it 2 times with the bleed-proof white. And, you know, I mean, at first glance, you're not going to notice it, but if you look really carefully, yeah, you can see it. There is a mark right there. So, you know, that's my only real regret, honestly, is that little line that I made at the end that wasn't necessary. But other than that, I thought this was so fun, and I want to do another one. So if you want to have a full-time tutorial on how to do this and maybe do it along with me, let me know in the comments, because that's something that I could offer to my members. If that's something that you guys would like to learn how, let me know, because I'd love to do some splash art. We can have some fun. We don't have to do a Disney character. We can do something else entirely. I will come up with a very fun subject for you. But let me know if that's something that would interest you, and I could do that for my members. Absolutely. You guys take care. I really appreciate you hanging out with me this long. And I hope that you had fun watching this Mickey splash come to life. So here's the world's most famous mouse in all of his experimental glory. And I thank you guys again so much for hanging out with me. If you like content like this, please consider subscribing if you haven't done that already. And then if you want to share this with your friends, those kinds of things always help my channel. Leave me a comment. Let me know your thoughts. I'm really anxious to hear from you. I love reading your comments. I hope you guys have a wonderful art-filled week, and we'll see you next time. Bye now.